Normal. Well, hello, everybody. We are coming to you on this split screen from two very different weather situations. I am sitting here in Atlanta in 61-degree weather. And Elizabeth, tell us where you are and what's going on.
I am in Dallas and it is 27 and we are not built for 27 down here. The ice is rolling in. It's our second ice storm this month, which
Is
is
it really?
crazy.
Wow.
And
And ice
everyone
is
here
just,
has like PTSD from last year when we had that crazy ice storm and so many people died. Like it was
yeah.
weird. So now everyone's really like weird about
It's
the
like, okay,
ice.
we'll pay attention now to the ice storm because it can take out, it's the electric. If it takes out the electric, it just everything goes crazy.
Yeah, it does.
And I don't know about down there, but up here, no, not here. I usually live in New Jersey, Pennsylvania area, and up there, people for whatever reason think that four-wheel drives can drive on ice.
Yeah, right.
Pretty much
Yes.
everything's the same on ice, and many have not figured that out yet. But let me introduce you. I am so glad you're joining us today, and I want to get to the meat of this because you do something very differently, and I want to talk about it because it's something that sort of affects me a little bit, and I'm interested in talking to you about it. But I think there are a lot of people in the group who can get a lot of benefit from it as well. So let me do a quick introduction. This is Elizabeth, and she is, I should give her a whole name, Elizabeth Hambleton. She's based in Dallas and the owner founder of Bonjour Branding. And she's a brand visibility strategist. And I really like the way that's phrased because uh, all of us, coaches, authors in particular, which we have a lot of in this group, struggle to get leads in our businesses. It's one of the hardest things that we do. If you ask, what's your biggest business problem? We often hear, I can't get leads. I can't get leads. So she's developed a signature framework that helps you book 4 podcast guest appearances over 4 weeks and then generates warm leads for your business without you having to spin your wheels on social media. And what I really like is when she's not doing that work, she's either drinking too much coffee, hanging out with her family, or raise your hand if you do this, wandering the aisles of Target. I just did that yesterday, as a matter of fact. So, welcome, Elizabeth. I'm thrilled to have you.
Well, thank you. I'm thrilled to be here.
Cool. Well, those must be your beautiful children behind you.
I studied photography in college. And so
Cool.
I took these as their like homeschool portraits during COVID because we were
I
bored.
like that. They're beautiful. They're absolutely beautiful. So tell me a little bit before we dive into this, because I'm really fascinated with this plan for visibility and how you differentiate yourself from other branders. But tell me a little bit about how you got to be doing what you're doing, what you did to get here, and a little bit about yourself so we can get to know you.
Yeah, I'm one of those people that I'm not going to lie. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do with my life right out of school. Like I said, I studied art. Not like it's a passion, not always like the most clear on how to make it lucrative. So I started out of school at an art museum and I worked in their publications department, which is really where I got heavily into branding. We were rebranding the museum. We did coffee table books. We did a lot of graphic design. We did the wall labels, all that stuff.
Oh, cool.
And that's really where I learned a lot about design and what makes a brand. And since it was like an artistic environment doing artistic work, it was even cooler graphic design than maybe I would have gotten if I had worked at like a bank or something.
Yeah, if you'd gone right into corporate.
Design, like everyone has graphic design, but this was like more interesting design, at least for me, because I really liked it. Was a more artistic group too.
Cool.
So it was really cool, but I did feel like I always knew I wanted to work for myself, but I didn't always know like how that would look. I left there, and then after having my first kid, I didn't want to work full time anymore. I wanted to work part time, and I actually got into personal styling, which that feels like a jump for some people, but really it's so similar because personal styling is really about creating a brand for yourself.
Yep.
And so it's kind of a lot of the same principles tied to like a human instead of a book cover.
For personal purposes instead of business purposes, but
right. And it's still a lot about color and pattern and proportion and texture and like a lot of the same stuff that you bring into graphic design. And I really liked it because the thing about fashion or graphic design for entrepreneurs is it's so much about it is really like building confidence for the person.
God,
So
so
like
much.
a great outfit like makes you feel like, okay, I'm ready for that date, or I'm ready for my high school reunion, right? And that's kind of the same thing that a good brand does. I think people put so much emphasis on like, oh, it's what your ideal avatar color thing is gonna like. But like your ideal audience, they're gonna connect with you because you solve a problem, not because you used their favorite color.
Yep.
Like people really like get stuck in the weeds, and I call that procrastinating because you're really just procrastinating and calling it branding. No color of pink is going to make you a millionaire, and no color of pink is going to make sure that you don't go out of business either, right?
Yep.
Like you can choose any color, and if you solve a pain point, people will pay you for that because
Yep.
people you do want to look professional. Like that's the bar. Do we look professional? Would I give this person money? But once you're over that bar, don't matter too much. Like
Mm-hmm.
you can do green, you can do pink, you can do blue. And if you solve a pain point for people,
That's what
they will
matters.
pay you for it. Because
And if the better you feel when you're talking to them about it, that's what I really like what you said is, this makes you feel better. The better you feel when you're talking to people about it, the more confidence you exude, the more you appear to be sure of yourself in what you know. And you're an expert. So you should be sure of yourself in what you know. So I really like that. All right, so you took all of that and now you've merged that into what? Like, how did you get to what you're doing today? I can't wait to tell people what it is because I think it's really exciting.
Yeah. And so the thing is, like, we can accomplish a lot about your design in like a day or a week, right? Design is not what holds people back. What they think it holds them back. But again, that's like sort of a procrastination tactic. Like your logo isn't going to close your sales for you. Like we all wish it did, but it doesn't. I can design you a jazzy logo and you can still go out of business, right? At the end of the day, like I was making brands for people and then they were like, okay,
now
I
what?
don't know what to do with it. Like it was
Got
just
it.
like,
It's the next step that matters.
what do we do? Well, like you got to make it a brand and not just a logo. You got to get it in front of people, right? That visibility piece is actually the harder lift. Like there's a million beautiful logos on Etsy. Like that's not that hard. It's like making it into an actual thing, a brand, a zeitgeist, something that people believe in and like want to support and want to share with their friends. And that's the heavier lift. And that's really why I shifted my focus to like, this is where I can make more of an impact, helping people get ready for being visible and actually taking that step to be more visible.
This is why I wanted to have this conversation with you. Because like I said at the beginning of this, I think that one of the hardest things that we have, like we'll build a great website, we have a great product, we're awesome at what we do. And then we sit on our front porch and wait for people to come find that out. And what you're really doing is taking that and turning it inside out and saying, now that you've got all these awesome things, here's what we need to do. So tell me like who your ideal client is and what you do with them to help them cross this bridge that so many of us get stuck at.
Yeah. I mean, we've all been stuck there thinking
like,
this feels hard. Or like I'm spending a lot of time and I'm doing the things, but like my Instagram gets 3 likes, or like you just feel like you can't cut through the noise, right? So a lot of it is around, I believe in developing a signature sort of messaging. And I do what I call the trifecta. I like to have 3 different areas. And I like people to sort of prepare it ahead of time because not everyone is a great extemporaneous speaker. Like I don't mind that and I kind of enjoy it actually, but not everyone does, right? And so if you don't feel confident talking about your brand, having those like stories and connections ready to go, because people remember stories. They don't remember dry facts. So if you want people to remember your brand, you have to tell them stories. You have to connect with them on a personal level.
Yep.
I think one of the main places people go wrong in their branding is that they only talk about their expertise, but you are more than your expertise. You're not just a designer or just a copywriter or just an author. You may also be a marathoner, a mother, a proud Texan, or someone from New York City, or like extreme snowboarder. I don't know what you do, but you have those other sides to you that humanize you. And those are what people connect with, because there is competition. There are other people who do finance, copywriting, write books, whatever. But the way that you bring people in and they think, oh, I want to work with that writer or that copywriter or that whatever it is you do, that's through that like humanized connection. And just the kind of like, I can make you get on podcasts. It will be great. Like no one trusts that anymore because everyone's been promised something where like, I can get 10-figure months in 5 days.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. We've all heard it.
I can get you 5 months of revenue in a month. Yeah. We've all heard it. Yeah.
6 figures in 24 hours with my method. Right.
Yeah. It's just noise out there now.
So much noise, so many overpromises. I think that people can be reluctant to trust you. But when you really share, I'm big on people sharing their journey, their passion, and their expertise. Those are the 3 buckets. Because your journey is like how you got here. And that is so relatable. I lost my first business completely. It was like a hard failure when my daughter was dying. She was like 9 months. And they looked me in the eye and said, she will not survive till Christmas at home. Like, this is like an all hands on deck, hospitalized, do whatever we can. And I was like, I know. That's why I brought her here, because she's not doing well. And she'd already had like 7 surgeries that year.
Oh my goodness.
Been physical therapy, all the things. And I was like, I'm ready. Like, this is the first world. We are going to figure this out. We're going to throw every resource at it. And I'm not going to sleep until she's stable. And like, I didn't even renew my domain. Like, I was like that checked out on my business. Right. So now I'm a huge believer in, like life proofing your business, like passive revenue streams, passive lead gen, right? Like that's one thing about podcasts. You get a podcast up, it can drive leads into your business for a long time.
Yep.
But see, like that's part of my story, and people can relate to the fact that like I wasn't always perfect. I wasn't always successful. Like
life wasn't this smooth thing you see when I'm talking to you about just what I'm good at. Right.
Right. Exactly. And like we all need that to feel connected. Especially as entrepreneurs, we've all been on like the ups, the downs, the good months, the lean months, like
the scary months. Yep.
Right. And the nice thing I think about podcasts is it's such a authentic way to share and really warm your audience and get new audiences. Because if someone listens to you for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, they're getting so much more than just like a reel or something, which could be catchy, but do they like dig in? Do you have
connect? Yeah.
There?
And they really
connect. Or
do
they just think that was funny and then
bye-bye.
That's all. Yeah.
On to the next, you flip up. Yeah. You're on the next one.
So I find that is like when you can get those key stories and you're ready to share them and you know what they're going to be, so you don't feel like frantic on the spot and you can create that connection with people, then you really create like an actual brand. It's so much more than a logo, right? It's a lot more to put together. And so that's become my passion, really helping people do that. And that's when you'll see success. When you can get that in front of new people, you won't have that struggle for leads.
I love that. And I'm guessing it's tried and true yourself as well. You've already given it the run. And you already described a lot that's very different about what you do and how you do this. In the actual podcast process, is there, helping people get these, I think it's 4 in 4 weeks. What is there something different in what you do to make sure that we're getting the right ones? Because like you said, there are these people out there that advertise, I can get you on 20 podcasts in the next 5 minutes. And I'm like, I don't need a podcast on how to build a widget or engineering or whatever it's going to be. Like what differentiates you and your method from others out there doing this work?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if people are familiar with this phrase, but a lot of people do what's called spray and pray.
I know exactly what it means from how it sounds.
Yeah. So you just like send out the same pitch to like 100 people and pray that, 20
Somebody
of them
will
liked
answer.
it. Right. So we kind of work off the complete opposite of that. It's that fewer pitches, but better quality, more authenticity, more real connection.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to give you better results long term. And also just doing the work, fewer shows that are really more targeted to your audience is going to give you like a lot more of a return. Like I always joke that like I could be on the world's #1 podcast for carburetors, but I probably wouldn't get any leads out of it because
Right.
I don't know anything about carburetors. So I'd sound like an idiot.
Mm-hmm.
And that's probably men who work on cars. And I don't usually help people who are men who work on cars.
Yep. You help women who are coaches.
They get obsessed with like size and downloads, and like that has value. But really, it's about seeing the bigger picture, going for authenticity, and knowing that different shows also bring different results. Like a show might not be huge and it might not give you like tons of leads the first day, but also you're building relationships with that host. And, Amy Porterfield or Jenna Kutcher had a first episode to their podcast.
They
and
did.
Now, I don't know, Jenna Kutcher, if people know, she has like hundreds of millions of followers these days. She just recently brought on the person that had been on her very first podcast guest, came like back on. And it's an example of like, now that person is probably like, heck yes, I'm glad I like took a flyer on this Jenna girl 2 years ago.
Absolutely.
Now she's besties with Tony Robbins. Like,
yep.
So, like you can't always judge a situation or a person by like their immediate efficacy for your brand. Yep. Like it's about the relationship. It's about the long game, the bigger picture. I will say podcast is about laying a runway for success. It's not about overnight success because it takes time.
Message. It is the perfect message for this group. In fact, Jess Madrigal's on here, and I talked to her recently about this too. And it is about the relationships that you're building in the long run everywhere. And that's kind of how and why we founded the Profit Concierge Group, is we want a place where those relationships can happen and build, and naturally, organically happen and build for that very reason, because those are the ones that are going to matter, not the person who happens to pick up the phone and call you and want your service right away. They might be an okay client. They might be a good fit for you, but the one who's known you now for 6 months, 12 months, whatever it is. And once you get through that first 6 months, then it starts, it's not like there's a lag anymore. And those relationships really start to turn into something, and you're working with people you like, because the ones you didn't like fell off the wayside. So it's really kind of, I love the approach.
And like referrals and stuff. Maybe someone doesn't need your service immediately, but they refer a friend.
Service. Bingo.
Or, like you just never know. And I think obviously you can't spend your time doing like teeny tiny shows all day long, but I do encourage people to throw a wide net, like do a couple big shows, a couple medium shows, a couple smaller shows, and, be open-minded to where all of those connections can lead. And, sometimes the people with smaller audiences are way more engaged. Like they'll be like, oh, I'd love to be an affiliate for your course launch, or,
and there you go.
Because they have a little bit more bandwidth. Like Jenna Kutcher is not going to offer to be an affiliate for your course launch, probably. So
right now. She might have a couple years
Probably
ago.
not. Unless you're like a big name and you probably already have everything you
Unless
need
you're
going.
Amy pitching Marie right now. Yeah, exactly.
Right. Exactly. But so, it's just about knowing what you're looking for, knowing how different shows can bring different results, being willing to put the time in to create that network. And like I published a book last year. So now I'm like technically a best-selling author. And I met her through being an expert in her group that she was turning into a podcast. And so there's always those side opportunities that
they
come up when you genuinely serve. I think if you take away my number one tip about pitching is it has to be about service. That these people are hosts because they care about their audience and they are looking to provide value for their audience. So do not start your pitch with anything. I want this. I just published a book. I have a launch coming up. I need more leads. Because no, start it with them, loving your series on working from home with kids. Thought I could add a lot of value for your audience by yada, yada, yada.
That
right?
is, speaking of adding value, folks, that's gold right there, because it surprises me always how few people do that. Like when I'm approached for things, I pretty much sort them into two piles. And there's the, hey, I'd like to know you because I think I need da 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 da. And there's the, hi, I saw this. I've heard about your group. I'd like to be in it. Here's what I could contribute. Very different approaches. And it really, as much as we say, and I really want to emphasize this, pitching has to be about service. Client service has to be about service. Relationship building has to be about service. There's still a lot of people that have missed that. And I don't think it's because they're not thoughtful that way and they're not in service. I think it might be because a lot of people get frozen in their words. And when it turns into, and this is like a new thing for them. And so it just comes out, like, blah, 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 blah. And spending the time with someone like you, with someone like, a good coach with this is say, hey, let's put your stories together so you're comfortable telling them. And then once you're comfortable telling them, let's get you practice a little bit and get you in front of the audiences. And that's a whole different thing than somebody who says, go out and build a relationship. And that's, I think, what's really neat about kind of how you approach this. So thank you very much for sharing that.
Well, I think people feel like they have to prove, why am I a copywriter? And so they kind of lead with their own expertise, but then they don't realize that can come off a little, I'm going to say desperate. Whereas
why I'm a human.
If you lead with, why you're a human, why that person should care, how you have taken the time to serve their audience well, they're going to really believe more in your ability to serve the client too. If you lead with service, people are going to think, oh, I got a lot out of that. I bet I'd get even more out of working with you or paying for you, rather than if I'm just like, oh, I can do all these things. I'm so great. I have these hours of accreditations. People are like, I don't know what that really means for me.
That's so true. That's kind of interestingly remained the same for me since when I was in corporate. And in corporate, I remember when an interviewee would come in and just reel off all of their academic accomplishments. I'd be like, oh, okay, well, how are you going to fit in with a team? How are you going to care about the other people in your group? How, what's going to happen there? And some of them, honestly, this is back in the day, but just were didn't know how to even approach the question. It's like, wait, I'm showing you everything I can do. It's like, that's kind of not the point. And so that carries over now into today's world where we're making a lot more micro decisions. We're going to make them aligned with the people that we connect with.
And I think that's a huge marketing trend. I do think it goes a little far, and that I'm not supporting that. It can be a little all the way to judgmental about, who the CEO of Home Depot supported in the presidential race or whatever.
Very good point.
Well, we shop at Hobby Lobby because they support this or that. I am not supporting it going to that level, but I will point out that more and more consumers want to connect with like the full brand. They want to
Yep.
know who you are as a person. They want to know, it doesn't have to be political or religious. Like, you don't have to take it that far, but they do want more than just your expertise. They want to feel like I'm supporting a mom, or I'm supporting a women-owned business, or I'm supporting like someone local. Like all those things do help move people to decision making. And you just have to feel what's right for your brand. Maybe you do want to be more vocal about certain things, and that's fine. And maybe you don't.
Right.
But it's something to consider.
I think you need to make an active decision. Yeah, you have to make an active decision about it. I think, in fact, was just talking with somebody else on a Snack and Learn about this, and that's, if somebody chooses to do that, to say, hey, here are my political views, here are my religious views, that's totally fine, because there are so many people out there. If that's one way that they want to identify who's going to attract to them and work well with them, that's great. And I kind of encourage it. But there are plenty who don't want to do that. And that's totally fine either way. So that's what I love about this world out there now for us, is we don't have to compete with each other, because we all are going to have a slightly different audience based on what you just described. Who are we? And I love that.
Right. And I think when you're afraid to do it, you don't speak to anyone. If I'm like, oh, I want to serve men and women. I want to serve millennials and Gen X. I want to serve
everybody,
North and South, like whatever. Like then you're like, it doesn't land for anyone. Like, oh, that's me. I need this person.
And that's so important. I learned that the hard way, because I was told that very early on, 6 years ago when I started my business. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. I work for everybody in corporate. I'm just going to talk to anybody and everybody. And it's just so not true. Somebody once pointed out to me, Pam, pick your target, because that will attract the people you really want. And other people will see it. Like, you'll still have diverse industries, diverse people, diverse everything, but you're just talking to one very specific person who's the perfect, who totally needs what you do and would be a perfect fit. So that's great. Guys, a lot of gold in this one. Most particularly is it's all about service. It's all about service, which echoes really what everybody in this group talks about. And that does not mean giving your stuff away for free. Any of you that have heard me talk about being a CFO know that I don't buy that. In fact, I help you work on getting your pricing up. But it does mean that if somebody's going to work with you and give you that money, you want to establish the relationship that you can give them value. And all of us in our disciplines have value that we can give away for free that can help somebody who just hasn't heard about it yet. And once people start to pick that up, they very much will go, wow, that was free. I want the next thing. What's the next thing? And that's when you need to start charging. And I'm never going to come off of that. But doing it in service is just changes everything. And it's really what we're trying to procure here as well. Outside of that tip, what's one thing you could leave with our group today that all of us could go do today or tomorrow and kind of make a difference in our businesses based on visibility?
Well, I think that this is one of my favorite statistics, because I find it shocking. More Americans listen to podcasts weekly than have Netflix subscriptions.
Really?
What? Weekly. Not like I've caught a podcast over my 10 years. More Americans listen weekly than have a Netflix subscription. So that shows you that the thing about people are like, oh, it's so hard. It's so hard. No, it is not hard. There are so many podcasts. It is an opportunity, a sea of opportunities, an abundance of opportunities. So don't make it hard in your head. There is a show out there that people are already listening. They're waiting for your genius.
That blows my mind.
Don't self-think like, oh,
I'm not the only one. Francisca's mind blown.
I know, right?
I think a lot of us think of podcasts peripherally. I know we are we're going to turn all these Snack and Learns into podcasts, but we haven't prioritized it. And that's crazy based on what you're saying. I had no idea.
Yeah. And so it's an really relatively easy way to reach a lot of people who are already very engaged, which is the opposite of social media. I think a lot of people are not that engaged anymore.
Yep.
It's getting harder and harder. You don't want your life controlled by the algorithm. But mainly people just come and they're like, it's going to be too hard. It's going to be too hard. It's not too hard. There are so many podcasts already out there. They all need content. And remember that, like, if you are a valuable guest, you're helping the host.
Yep.
Like,
That's exactly right. They've got to fill the slate.
Yeah, they need content. And like, we all need content in our businesses. And
Yep.
we all are like, oh, it's Monday.
That's
like,
why I
what
do
I
snack
say?
and learns. I do snack
Right.
and learns. Well, to meet cool people, but also I get content out of them. There's, there's a method to the madness. I think that's a great point. And Jessica's also pointing out, there are podcast collab groups out there, so you can work to help each
Yes.
other get on the right podcasts. I meant to show that, but how do people? If somebody's interested in learning more about what you do for your clients, how do people get in touch with you?
Yes, if you are interested in visibility, you can find me at Bonjour Branding. Bonjour, like hello in French, because I am a huge Francophile.
Love it.
Bonjourbranding.com. I find that if I add French into everything, I get around trademark issues.
That's brilliant.
Because no one else is doing that. So it's also more memorable. And then also, if you need help developing your stories, I do co-run a journaling collective group. It's totally free. We send out weekly journaling prompts, and I think it's a great way to start story mining in your own life. What are my stories? How do I connect it to my business? It's free. We send out weekly prompts. It's fun.
Oh.
And it's like a very supportive group. And the person I run it with, is a book coach. So we kind of both help you take your stories and do different things with them if you want, but you can also just join for the therapeutic. The act of writing it down can be so therapeutic, and it's a great way to really get in touch with yourself, because sometimes people are like, I don't know what my stories are.
Mm-hmm.
That can be a way to start story mining in your own life and seeing what comes up.
How do they reach out on that? Is there a place to go for the journaling collective?
Yes, you have the link in the thing. It's journalingcollective.com.
Journaling.
And that was in the little promo thing that you shared. So they can find it there too.
All right, great. So that's already in the promo for it. Good work, team. Thank you, team. If you're watching, you are awesome. So I can't thank you enough for coming on here. This has been really enlightening and very helpful. There's a lot of gold in here. And the couple of things that really jump out with me is pay attention to podcasts, folks, because they're getting listened to and watched more than Netflix right now on a weekly basis. Blows my mind. Second is lead with service in all of your visibility work. You always want to be giving something as you build a relationship. And we certainly in my audience are really focused on long, healthy business and personal relationships. And I'm really glad you've joined us in the group and for sharing all of this with folks. Thank you so much. If people watching this on replay want to leave questions down below, we will tag Elizabeth so that she gets them and will be able to answer for us. And I look forward to seeing you guys in the next Snack and Learn. And Elizabeth, thank you again.
Of course. Thank you.
Take care, everybody.